Buddy, the Simple Handicap for Tuesday, December 3rd. Thank you for making me a part of your morning. Week 13 in the rearview mirror. Week 14 straight in front of us. And we'll get you started this Tuesday morning with the first market rundown of NFL week number 14. Things kick off Thursday night football. Awesome game. Looking forward to this one. The Green Bay Packers on the road at the Detroit Lions. Lions down to 3.5 even money this morning at Chris. Minus 105 at Circa. 3 minus 125 at Buckeye. Everywhere else across the board, we'll call it a cheap 3.5. Total in this game, 51.5. Holding steady at that number. We'll talk about it more tomorrow on the live stream preview. I do like the Detroit Lions here at 3.5 even money. That is going to be the side for me. I think the defensive injuries have brought this number down a little bit too far. I do think the Lions offense is going to have a ton of success against this Packers defense in this matchup. We'll have a full detailed breakdown on the Wednesday live stream preview, but I'm very intrigued to see if this dips a little bit lower. To me, this is the point where it hits the floor and we see this start to go back the other way. So we'll start off the market rundown with the side I like here on the Detroit Lions. Jumping over to Sunday, it's the Atlanta Falcons on the road at the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings from 4.5 out to 5 this morning as the Vikings take money in the Kirk Cousins revenge game going back against his old team. My speculation is that he is dealing with an injury. I know there were tweets about it Sunday night, some rumors that were coming about. I think there's something there. And watching some of the highlights back and seeing some of the reaction from film guys to the tape, there is something, in my opinion, going on with Cousins, not just with the leg, but with the arm as well. I think there is an issue. Some of those throws and the velocity that we saw were just puzzling. I couldn't believe it. I still can't believe it a couple days later. Curious to see if there's anything that does come from that officially. Doesn't sound like it initially, but to me, there's something at play there. In the market, perhaps, buying into that a little bit too as this number pushes up from 4.5 to 5. New Orleans on the road at the New York Giants. Saints getting bet. Pretty crazy to see as this 4 is now 5 across the board. For the Giants, unclear who is going to be the starter at quarterback. Dexter Lawrence out for the season with a dislocated elbow. That is a massive, massive blow to the defensive line, which was the only bright spot for the Giants this entire season. Whether it's Locke or DeVito, don't know if we see a big difference, depending on how this is being bet. So far, the market loves the Saints. Boy, oh boy, that's a bit surprising to me, the Saints out to being this big of a favorite. From props and perspective of the prop market, keep an eye on Kendre Miller. And what we're going to get is Darren Rizzi wants to get him out there on the field and is talking him up on a Monday presser and into Tuesday. He was somebody that seemed to be very suppressed by the previous head coach, Dennis Allen. We'll see if that finally breaks out and we see the Saints' run game open up in spite of losing Taysom Hill for the rest of the season, who's been a key cog to getting this offense going for New Orleans. So a big change in the backfield that certainly will have the prop markets moving around quickly as we see openers begin to hit the board. Jacksonville on the road at the Tennessee Titans. One-way money on Mac Jones. Probably something nobody expected to be uttered at any point during the season. Here we are on December 3rd. This game was as high as 6 for Tennessee. We are now down to 3.5 across the board for everywhere except for Chris. The total still between 39.5 and 40. We discussed this quite a bit on the Sunday evening live reaction show to the openers. How low is too low for a Tennessee Titans total with the way that the offense is trending and perhaps a turning of the corner in a negative direction for the defense after their inability to stop the run of the Washington Commanders? Perhaps this is a sign of things to come for the Titans defense and the way that that unit is looking and perhaps a lack of motivation as the season is now completely gone and out of reach. Do you get a bit of a fight from a Titans team that doesn't have a whole lot to play for? Early sign says no. For Jacksonville, same question can be asked. How long does Peterson hang on? The writing is basically on the wall that he's out at the end of the season. So you have two teams here with very little to play for going up against each other. Short total for how some of these defenses in this game have looked the last couple of weeks. Las Vegas on the road at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All the 7.5s are gone. We are back down to 7 flat across the board. 45 still the total from left to right across the screen. A little bit of Raiders money, showing in the early portion of this week. Cleveland, Pittsburgh still off of the board, expecting Pittsburgh to be just shy of a touchdown favorite on the reopen a little bit later this morning. Carolina on the road at the Philadelphia Eagles. You have to look at this two different ways. Is it a letdown for Philly, or through the on-field matchups that weigh so heavily in favor of the Eagles in this game, arguably as favorably as any team has had on both offense and defense all season, is that enough to negate any possible letdown factor? The market has been conflicted. 13 to 12.5, 12.5 to 13, 13 back to 12.5, and back to 13 again is how it's been the entire week. The total has been moving up because there's a pretty easy way to look at this and saying, like, what are the Panthers going to do to stop the run game of the Eagles? They're going to get whatever they want, and if the buying into Bryce Young is real, well, you're probably expecting the Panthers to look a little bit better than expectation gives them. At 46.5, we start to have a bit of a different conversation now, but it's been a 2-point move early in the week on the over in favor of the total. New York Jets on the road at the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins 6.5-point favorites across the board. Total 45 now, showing 46 at Circa, the lone 46 on the board. Defensive injuries on both sides of the football. Sauce Gardner with an MRI yesterday to evaluate the extent of his injury. Perhaps speculation that DJ Reed maybe gets a suspension or disciplinary action from the league for a profanity-laced tirade on Twitter post-game targeted at the referees. For the Dolphins, at least 3 cornerbacks unclear for their status in this game. Jeff Ulbrich, the Jets head coach, said yesterday Aaron Rodgers will remain the starter because he gives us the best chance to win. It was a reversal from what he said Sunday evening. We kind of left it open-ended. Didn't want to really commit one way or the other. Yesterday seemed to be at least a commitment for one more game. Total is moving up because of injuries in both secondaries. Point spread is holding steady at 6.5. Seattle on the road at the Arizona Cardinals. Surprising to me this hasn't come off of the 3. Not because I am implying a bet or a intrigue in one side or the other, but the way that Seattle has been playing, the way that the defense has been improving, Arizona losing in pretty painful fashion on the road at Minnesota, with this game being adjusted up from where we were in the first meeting between these two teams just a couple of weeks ago, how that game played out. With this on the key, and the Seahawks now a 3-point dog, I thought that we would see a little bit of Seattle money. The fact we haven't starts to make me look at Arizona in a bit of a different way this week. Maybe that is going to change as the week progresses. I'm just surprised it didn't come through yesterday, is my take on it. Buffalo on the road at Los Angeles, taking on the LA Rams. This number saw quietly a bit of movement yesterday as news started to leak out around 6 p.m. as the Monday Night Football game was going on, that Matthew Stafford suffered a lateral ankle sprain during the game against the Saints late in the game. It is not supposed to impact his practice. I don't quite have certainty on the severity of the injury, but Matthew Stafford at less than 100% is a problem for the Rams and is a problem behind this offensive line against the Buffalo Bills pass rush. This is potentially going to move this number up even further than what we have seen so far for the movement. But this is a very notable piece of news that came out somewhat quietly. I didn't see a lot of the injury services picking it up and sending it out, and so that's perhaps why the line hasn't moved a ton. The move originated at Chris from 4 to 5, and we saw Circa tick up a little bit. Not a surprise to see with something like that didn't hit the injury services and didn't get picked up by everybody. You have the movement originate at the two sharpest shops on the board. Chicago on the road at the San Francisco 49ers. Got as low as San Francisco 3.5. We are now seeing 4 at Chris, Circa, and Buckeye. Similar scenario where you're seeing a move once a number kind of hit the floor at the sharpest shops, push the number up. And this happens amid a lot of negative news for the 49ers as both McCaffrey and Jordan Mason are put on injured reserve. And so what do you get from the run game? It's going to be a big step down for San Francisco, who have just a bevy of injury issues and also have a tragic situation going on with Trent Williams, who is vital to any hope and success that this offense might be able to generate. And that is another story to monitor and see what his status is going to be going into this game. It is intriguing from the Bears in a handicapping perspective, getting the new head coach Thomas Brown stepping in as an interim. You have Eberflus removed. It's the playoff spot. But here you have San Francisco with their season on the line amid all of these injuries. 3.5 was the point of resistance as we start to see this number tick back up a little bit more in the opposite direction. LA Chargers on the road at Kansas City. Chiefs got as low as 3.5 even money yesterday morning. This is now out to Chiefs -4. Certainly agree with that. Total from 44.5 down to 42.5. Ladd McConkey, the big status to watch for. Harbaugh said at his presser yesterday he is hopeful that McConkey is at practice this week, but was non-committal. I would expect the DNP tomorrow. Have to wait and kind of get a gauge for anything else he says commentary-wise for what we might get Thursday and Friday. I'm thinking McConkey is at best 50-50 to play in this game. The big news to watch for on the Chiefs side is DJ Humphries at left tackle. They get Humphries back and playing in this game. It is going to do wonders for an offensive line that absolutely needs help and is going to benefit from his play and the stability that he provides for the entire offensive line. A massive announcement coming possibly from the Chiefs later this week if Humphries is able to go. If McConkey is unable to go, that is a big, big, big blow to the Chargers offense. Monday Night Football, it's the Cincinnati Bengals on the road at the Dallas Cowboys. And just like every other week this year, Bengals totals, you know which way they're going. They're going to be bet up. Now, here's what I'm curious to see. We've gone from 46.5 all the way up to 50. Makes sense. Cooper Rush and the Cowboys, pass rate over expectation. Really high since he took over. They're moving the football. They have a defense here in Cincinnati that can't stop anybody. Makes sense to why we're seeing this total get pushed up. You have Joe Burrow calling out his team on both offense and defense, saying that they are going to be remembered for how they handle these games down the stretch. He's been performing amazing all season with some awesome offensive outputs. Against the Cowboys, pass rush showed up on Thanksgiving against the Giants. He's going to be tested in that, but certainly opportunity to find success against this Cowboys secondary. I get why the total has moved up. What I'm curious to see, every week as these totals have moved up, there has been a willingness from a group to bet the under in these Bengals totals. That's not going well for them. Are we going to see that on Wednesday with this total in the 50s? Wednesday has been the point of resistance for totals all season that have been in the 50s where we see under money come in. Are we going to see that in this game? Does it give initial folks who may have missed it and want the over another opportunity to come back at 48.5 or 48? We'll see what happens, but Bengals totals have been a wild ride during the week so far for the last really 2.5 months, and I get the impression that this one might take on a similar viewpoint. In terms of weather, here we sit early on a Tuesday morning. Forecast is clear across the board. It is great to have 6 teams on a bye and get a bit of a shorter card after a very busy Week 13, a little chance to exhale here in Week 14. We've already had one release on the service on a side. It was not the Detroit Lions, a side that I like personally. Perhaps another couple more sides to look at as we get to the full live stream preview tomorrow morning that will be uploaded on the podcast feed as well as over on the YouTube channel. I hope everybody has a fantastic Tuesday. Enjoy your day. We'll chat with each and every one of you again tomorrow morning.